So without no further delay, I want to bring up our international representative of the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, Abdul Akbar Mohammed. Bring him up to the floor.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
I'm smiling because I looked out in the audience and saw two brothers, in particular from St. Louis. Where's the third and fourth one? Rafiq, is Rafiq?
Oh, you talking about?
Assalamu alaikum. So first, let me start. That warms my heart, you know, after so many years in St. Louis, and I was back there drinking a hot cup of coffee, not realizing that it would make me sweat. So, but I thank Allah for blessing me to be here this evening. I pray Allah that He will guide my words and whatever I say that will help you to stay on the straight path. The Muslims say the mustaqim, and also to be helpers in this cause in a time that our people are looking for guidance. And we cannot be bystanders to history. And some people look at what's going on in the world and wonder. I ask Allah to bless Minister Farrakhan. I consider myself blessed because of my long relationship with him. And whenever I reach an impasse on something, I can always get his opinion. And his opinion is worth its weight in gold. And it's because of the kind of heart he has and the love for this community. And I know that you have been in a valley. And I just want to say this at the start of my subject. My subject is Roots, Revolution, and Voices of the Future. And I didn't know if they advertised my subject, but I was in Houston for 2 days or 3 days, and we had a great meeting. And then the thing that happened that was really an act of God, we got in a day early, and Minister Roberts said he's going to Baton Rouge for the funeral of Alton Sterling. And I said, well, I'd like to go. And I went to that funeral, and I learned a lot. And Brother Robert took care of business. And I was sitting in the audience, and I was hoping that, because they kept passing over him, I said, I hope they let our brother speak. Because the voice of the nation need to be in the middle of this struggle. And all of the work that we've done, as I said to Minister Farrakhan, I said, you know, people say, what is the justice or else? The else is going on right now. And the else is that black people in our struggle has taken center page. 2 days on the front of the Wall Street Journal was about our struggle. And even though they're in the midst of a rough political campaign, with a white man that's saying, make America white again. That's what he really means.
That's what he's saying.
He said, make America great. He said, make America white again. And he has no love for minorities. He may pay lip service to them because he's supposed to be the president of this country, and he has to speak for all of the people, but he's speaking for white America. That's what he's really speaking for. And the few black people who attended the convention that's going on in Cleveland right now, they look like flies in butter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Say it again.
And when the cameras find one of those Negroes, they beat in on them.
Yeah.
You know? Right. So this is where we are. So I don't want to, you know I'm long-winded, sister, so I want to keep you all night. So I want to get right to the point of the subject. Thank you for coming out. The minister asked me to extend the greetings of Assalamu alaikum to the brothers and sisters. Inshallah, when I talk to him tomorrow, I certainly will. The minister's on the West Coast now. But let me just say this about this hour. The minister said, I'm watching, because what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said will not go by the wayside, though we for years kind of neglected separation. I mean, it wasn't a subject that we dived right in. And we met a black man or black woman in the street, and we trying to tell them about Islam, the beauty of this faith, and why don't you join the nation or come to our meeting. We never go into separation. And because the mindset, and it's my mind many times, that they're not ready for that. If I talk about separation, the first thing a black man or black woman will say is that I ain't going nowhere with a bunch of niggas. So I'm not about to do that. And so you have stayed away from it, but now it has gone full circle.
Yes, sir.
And Allah has brought it right back. Because it's going to be a rough time. And I know we get comfortable, our cars and our Lexus and Mercedes look good in the yard and our house, and the grass is cut nice when we can get some water and so forth on it. But it's a comfort zone. And you don't want nobody to mess with that comfort zone. So you can come to the mosque and take care of your business, greet the brothers and so forth. But Allah is going to rock that book. It's being rocked right now. Because our people are looking for leadership. They're in a dilemma. Look at how Giuliani described Black Lives Matter.
Yes, sir.
And Black Lives Matter was really born in St. Louis.
That's right.
It was the death, they've been killing us for a long time, but it was the death of Mike Brown Jr. that really kicked this off.
Right.
And you notice
Yes,
all of the articles go back to Ferguson, which is St. Louis. What happened in that one? It reached a point where so many people saw that policeman murder that young brother and then justified it, and they excused him and he walked free. Matter of fact, he murdered Mike Brown Jr. and became a millionaire.
That's right.
Okay, that's what it was. He got 6 figures for 2 interviews that I know of, and probably many more across the country and across the world. So he kills a young black man, he becomes a millionaire, and the justice system frees him and he walks free. It happens over and over and over again until it reached the point that some brothers got frustrated. They were angry. They try to blame it on everything else, but there's a pattern of that in history. If you look at the Vietnam conflict, and there's a book called Bloods by a brother named Wallace, and he was in the war, but they came home and the war radicalized them because they saw the Viet Cong fighting against a foreign power who said that they were coming there to free the people of South Vietnam because communism was going to dominate their country. But it was about oil and resources. And they sent 58,000, and you should remember that number, 58,000 young Americans to their death in an unholy war in Vietnam. And it brought back drug addicts. The brothers had to take drugs in order to get hyped up to go and fight and kill people, to burn down villages. And 58,000 Americans died. But it radicalized a group of them. And they became radical, they came back home, and they looked at the miserable condition of black people in America, and they took to the streets. This is what happened. So history, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, repeats itself. So right now you got the same thing. They don't talk about it in the terms that I'm talking about it. Right. But those 2 men were radicalized by your murdering of young people in the street.
Yes,
and you know that when they go to Afghanistan and Iraq and get involved in wars over there, they come back, the white boys come back with their minds messed up. And so do the black men.
Yes,
they come back, they're sick, some come home, shoot their wives, found out their wives may have committed adultery while they were over on these tours of duty, come and shoot her and then shoot themselves, shoot up gas stations. And they're suffering mentally from that war. But some of them take it in another direction.
Yes, sir.
So these 2 brothers that committed that act, you know, what drove them to that? Why did they do it?
Right.
You know, and listen, and they were good at what they did now.
Yes, sir.
Ain't no doubt about it. They got all kind of charts, how he ran around here, shot from there, and it took a sharpshooter to take him out. But the man was radicalized. So my subject about Roots, how many saw the remake of Roots? How many saw it? I recommend strongly. And even Brother Tyrone, you can have a showing at the mosque.
Yes, sir.
Brother Adimar has taken all of the advertisement out of it. Adimar in Atlanta, who is technically astute with films. And he's made a copy that you can sit and watch it. It doesn't take as much time as looking at it on a TV. But I sat down because the reason I sat down those 4 nights and watched it, because I read why the man remade it. His father made the original Roots. And Roots was based on Alex Haley's interview with Malcolm. That's where it started at. Malcolm kept telling him. And I don't know if maybe many of you may not know this story, but I'll try to say it quickly. Alex Haley came out of the Coast Guard. He started writing for Reader's Digest. And at that time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was drawing 15 and 20,000 people around the country, big auditoriums. And so they were saying, what is this black man saying to these people that they come to a meeting like that? And so it wasn't in a vacuum. It was during the height of the civil rights struggle. And black people were groping and trying to figure out how they were going to handle this struggle. And everybody was preaching, be peaceful, don't become radical. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was saying, we weren't violent, but we were not trying to integrate and get on our knees and let white folks beat us down.
Right.
That was the bottom line. So people came out to the meeting to hear and look for direction, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad preached to them. So this, Alex Haley wrote the article called The Most Powerful Black Man in America.
That's right.
And it's received wide acclaim. If you can go online and look at the old Reader's Digest, it was in 1960, I cannot tell you the month. So when he did it, he got so much credit for this article explaining the work of Elijah Muhammad and his impact on black America. Then Alex Haley came back to Malcolm, who helped him to do the article, and asked Malcolm that I want to do the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's biography. How many know this story? I repeated. How many know it? Okay, enough in here don't know it that I can repeat it. Okay? So Alex Haley said, I'd like to do a biography of Elijah Muhammad. And so Malcolm took that to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm that my life is only written when a period is put to it.
That's right.
But he said, however, Malcolm, why don't you let him write about your life? How you heard Islam, came into Islam, and so people could understand that. So that's how the biography of Malcolm started. The autobiography of Malcolm. A lot of people don't know that.
That's right.
It was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that encouraged him to do it. So he started with Alex Haley. And Alex Haley, Malcolm kept saying to him, you probably came from a Muslim family. You're probably a Muslim. All the Muslims in West Africa. I'm going to hold up a map for you and just show you the area where the Muslims came from. But Alex Haley didn't believe that. He didn't believe that, as most of us don't believe that, because the white man conveniently brainwashed us that we were savages in Africa. And that's why Negroes thanked white folks for finding them in the trees of Africa with bones in their nose, bringing them to America and making them good Christians. You believe that. So therefore, when somebody tells you that you were a Muslim in Africa and you built great civilization, that sounds like a hype to you because you don't know it. See, and this is the important part of it. So after Alex Haley, a book came out in '76, and then this man, Wopo, who did the film, took parts of the book, put it together, but about a year or so, New York Times give the timeline, he sat down with his children because they were not interested in roots. And even black people were not interested in it, especially those who were babies at that time, were not even born. So when he looked at it, he said it has to be written again or shown again, but in a modern context that will resonate with this generation. And I'm going to tell you, I sat there and watched it. And being that I knew the background of how he was redoing what his father did, but trying to make it resonate with a contemporary audience, that's how you have that roots. And let me tell you how it resonated. First of all, when he showed Jufri, the village that Kunta Kinte came from on the Gambia River in Gambia, he said it was a big city. Right now it's a village of 600 people. It's where Minister Farrakhan built the Alex Haley Mosque and insisted to the Muslims there that it be named the Alex Haley Mosque because when we were building it, how many know about this? Raise your hand. Enough don't know that I can tell. Now, if half of the audience raised their hand and they know about it, then I wouldn't go over it again. But when we were there, when we were building the mosque, the Muslims in Jufri didn't want us to name it the Alex Haley Mosque because Alex Haley was a Christian. But the minister, and being that we were financing it, the minister pushed that no. He left money here and he was going to build a mosque. We're going to name it the Alex Haley Mosque in Jufri. So all praise is due to Allah. So we built that mosque. But the point was that it was a big city. And then this man with the new film, he talked about the training of a Mandinka warrior.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And the legacy, passing down legacy. And that's what we have to understand.
Right.
That's really your roots. What kind of legacy do you leave for your children? Do you leave for your children a legacy? I joined the Nation of Islam and stayed there 2 or 3 years. Those Negroes got on my nerve and I left, okay? That could be the legacy. And then your child has no interest in it. Your child say, that's passe, I'm not interested in that. So you got to know how to leave the legacy because they are the voices of the future. It's your babies.
Right.
I got a son right now, I don't know where he is. Jihad in here? No, he's on, in the office on his phone. Could you please tell him to come in here? I know he thinks he's grown, but I'm going to have to send Brother Captain John after. And there's a couple of games on there that people spend hours. There's a big book called War and Peace. Anybody ever heard of the name of that?
Yeah, big book.
The time that you spend on that Pokemon and on those games, I could read War and Peace 2 times. Okay? I mean, you could go through the Bible and the Holy Quran. People spend hours on it because it's like a drug, it's an addiction, and the white man knows exactly what he's doing. See, the first place you come, I just want to know if it was in there. I didn't want to know. See, you were absent. This is my son, Jihad. But they get you wrapped up in those games.
Right.
And some of you, you know, it's not that you're communicating to your office and sending them emails back. You're in there on a game. Then the other ones got it in their ear all day. I'm calling. My son is a prime example. I said, Jihad. And he's there listening. He got the music going. So they take you away from what is real and reality and the kind of world that you deal with. And so it's called dumbing down black America. Keep those niggas, excuse the expression, as dumb as possible. Keep them hooked up in their music, their lifestyle. Keep them smoking dope and drinking and partying and so forth, chasing women. And as long as they stay in that position, we can go on and run the world. But they have become a problem to us.
Go ahead.
And so the roots is important, and I'm going to tell you about it. Those who saw it, you will understand it. Number one, it showed you the horrors of the slave ship. And if you read Google, I don't know Walpole's first name. Maybe Earl, you can Google him and find his name. But read the background of how he searched for someone who would play the role. The scenes in the slave ship coming over. And, you know, you get the first thing they get is seasick. And if anybody in here been seasick before, and you know when you're seasick, all you do is just continue to throw up and so forth. And then the horror of the slaves. And then them trying to communicate because different tribes. But most of them were Muslims. And then he shows, this is your roots now. And you got, who's going to teach your children this? Unless they're in a conscious school. Dallas has been known as a conscious city when it comes to black people.
That's right.
You know, Erykah Badu and her theater that she had there, but they were conscious black people. But there's a system now, because you're getting them in chartered school, you don't have your own school, we don't support it, that our people are not conscious. They say, what does consciousness mean? How can I make some money with consciousness? Consciousness is your soul. It makes you a black man or a black woman because your eyes are open. And when you're a dead black man, your eyes are closed and you don't know what's happening. Or a dead black woman. And that's why the enemy can fool you and deceive you over and over again. He can send you to a payday loan station and you paying $500 turns into $2,500 because your eyes are not open, you're not conscious. But when you know that white man, your eyes are open. And so when he speaks to you, you Kwame Ture should pop up in your brain. White folks don't lie. Sometimes they lie all the time. And so you look at him for him to drop the lie on you first. So let me just finish this. Roots are important. Some people feel, don't waste your time when you go to school studying that black history stuff. Is it going to make you some money? That's because you have been turned into a black dead capitalism. In capitalism, the real definition is organized greed. Everything centers around money. Everything is money. I got to have money. I got to have money. And the white man wants you to think like that. Yes, you got to have money. but there are some principles that are beyond money.
Go ahead.
There are things that you do. When we went out in the street and fished brothers off the corner and tried to get them straight and bring them to the mosque or went after our sisters, that wasn't money driven.
Right.
That was because this word had changed your heart, had made a different man or a different woman out of you, and you felt that the word was powerful enough to change others, so you went in the street and began to work on it.
Yes, sir.
So let me go back to roots. And then we're going to talk about the next part of my subject is revolution.
Go ahead.
And then the voices of the future, which are our children.
Yes, sir.
They are our asset.
Yes.
You know, don't throw them out and hope the best for them. You know, I hope they make it. It's like a farmer planting seed, and I hope they can make it through the weeds and so forth. He's got to cultivate it. It's the same thing with children. Because your real legacy is not for him to, when you die, to say he was a good father or a good mother, and that's the end of it, but what they taught me, what I learned from them. So they brought the slaves, and then you know the story, he was sold on a plantation. But he always remembered, and in this picture, the man actually showed him praying. And Fiddler said, I hope those prayers get you somewhere. And here's the important part of the film, if you remember it. He was making his prayers. In the old picture, they just talk about him not eating the pork meat, or that's all. You know, but you didn't hear him saying Allah or doing his prayers. In this one, they show that. But here's the important part. So they gave Fiddler to him, you know, and Fiddler was played by Forrest Whitaker. And they gave Fiddler to him, and Fiddler learned how to play a violin, so the master gave him some room. But Fiddler's job was to break this Mandinka warrior and make him a real slave. And they started with his name. They said the master was beating him and trying to tell him the name they chose was Tobias, or Toby, which is a Christian name. Toby comes from Tobias, which means the cross, the 3 in 1 and all of that stuff. So, but he wouldn't do it because the Mandinka warrior was a strong man. And the way that a woman cries out in the pain of giving birth, the men felt that they wasn't going to cry out, but that man was beating him. And Fiddler was saying, just say it, just say it. You know, almost beating him to death, and he was holding his position. Then, one night he was in the shed where he sleeps at, and he was singing the song, Legacy, Your Children, that his mother had taught him. And Fiddler stopped in his tracks and turned around. That's when I really caught the feeling of the picture itself.
Yes, sir.
And Fiddler said, that's the song my mother used to sing to me. And showing that they came from the same area or the same tribe, and he turned around. And then Fiddler kind of embraced him and protected him and kind of looked out for him.
Right.
Then there was a part in it that I was surprised that the white man would write.
Yes,
Put it on the screen. The tragedy of slavery and the pain of slavery. There is a book, and I'm sorry I sold the last few copies in Houston. And after I went to fruit class, the brothers came out and brought the rest of them. I don't have it. But many of you may have it on your shelf, but never pulled it down to read it. It's called Before the Mayflower, Lerone Bennett. How many have that book on their shelf? Okay? Pull the book out. It was written in, I think, 72. But pull it out and read the part about Africa and before we came here. I mean, I read it years ago. I had it in my bookstore. I must have sold thousands of them because I used to talk about it in the mosque in New York. And the one They Came and Changed, those two books. And I believe the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentioned They Came and Changed. But it gives you a sense of the suffering of our people. But in the movie, what happened, there was a black man who was a blacksmith. He shoed the horses and whatnot. And if you remember, he was trying to be a good slave. And even when people approached him to do something, escape or run away, no, I'm going to obey the master because I don't want him to sell off my family. I want to stay here. He was trying to be a good slave. And those that saw it, do you remember this part? And one night while he's working late for the master, shoeing horses, 3 white men went in there right while he was there next to it and raped his wife. And he became radicalized. Then he was, because his pain was so deep, he couldn't be a good Negro anymore. He just couldn't do it, so he got involved with those who were in the struggle. And then the writer of the picture showed a scene of Nat Turner's rebellion and how Nat Turner impacted them. And what it meant that even though we thought we had broken these slaves and made them our Negroes, but now they are radicalized and we can't control them. And that control is not that we're crazy or we're violent. The pain is so deep.
Yes,
I saw the pain in Baton Rouge at that funeral. And the people that were there were looking because the people were crying and screaming and so forth. Brother Earl was there, you saw it. And the way the women, some people say, well, boy, that's extreme. It's not extreme. It's a pain that you don't understand. When you get old and you die of natural causes or you're sick, then people can handle that. But when you're a young, vibrant man with 5 children who don't have an education but would get on the corner every day and sell tapes to feed your family, and 2 policemen come and murder you. Murder you over nothing. And then the pain of losing them, I saw the people crying. I saw them coming in screaming. They had to call the medic 2 times. And some people would look at that and say, wow, they're going to the extreme. They're not going to the extreme. You got to know what that pain is about. That pain can radicalize people. And so those 2 brothers that America took into the war, sent them overseas to kill their perceived enemy, which were all Muslims, and to shoot women and rape and pillage and burn villages as they did in Viet Cong. It radicalized them.
That's right.
And they came back and they got sick and tired of it. And their mental condition is unknown. Nobody brought them back and sent them to a shrink and took care of them. I know I got a brother that's in the nation. When he came back from Vietnam, being that they taught him to kill, he was a night killer. He used to go into the Viet Cong's tunnels and kill the Viet Cong. They taught him how to do it, and when they brought him back to America, every 6 months for a long time, they would take him, bring him to a place in Georgia, and examine him. Why were they examining him? They would see, I taught you to kill, and I want to make sure you're not going to come back and kill me. So that's the way they tried to cool him out. But this is what it was about. So what you have seen, and this is the importance of teaching your children. You got to guide them right. You're going to make them safe. And here's how they make them safe. When you get pulled over by the police.
Yes, sir.
So you drive now on guard, looking, see if the police. As soon as the light comes flashing in the back of you over a broken tail light, 2 black men were murdered in this country over a broken tail light. And then they tried to change the scenario because over a broken tail light, a man loses his life. And then they were using, Ferguson brought out to the whole nation that the black community was being used as an ATM machine. And every one of these little municipalities needed money. They got the money from the black community. Gave you tickets. You pay off 1 ticket, then they send you to another municipality to pay another. There's 1,800 police forces in America. That's too many. And why is too many? Because every little one got their own law, their set of law. So if you drive on a Monday night, I lived in Brentwood. On Monday night, there's a line in front of the little courthouse there. And the line is 99.9% black men and women waiting to go in there and give those white folks some money for some little petty stuff next to nothing. Speed limit 35, you going 40, they pull you over. You know what the speed limit is? And then they go through all of that. So this is why the training and the teaching of your son. I mean, you're a man. And they say, well, when he stops, say, yes, sir, and no, sir. I mean, I do that when they stop me. I say, yes, sir, no, sir. Put your hands on the thing. Say, officer, I'm going to get you the license out of there. I mean, that's trying to instill a kind of fear in you that is nothing but complete control. You're a man. Officer, what did I do wrong? Or you were going 40 and a 35. And if he chooses to give you a ticket, then let him write you a ticket. Step out of the car. Do this, do that. See, that's right. And demean you. You know, you have to read the history of Angola prison. You get a little bit of it's in Louisiana. You get a little bit of it in today's USA Today. When you saw the article about the museum that they're opening, the African American Museum in Washington. It was a slave plantation. They arrest you for some petty crime. You don't have money to make bail. Then you stay in there. Then they job you out to some manufacturers in the state of Louisiana. And you work, they give you inordinate prison terms. 40 years. What was he doing? Loitering and threatening to fight on the street corner. 40 years in jail. It's a form of slavery. So this is the importance of knowing your roots and working with your children, because we won't be here tomorrow. I'm in my mid-70s. And I know that it's limited how long that I will be on the planet. But what is my contribution? My contribution starts first with those children that God blessed you to produce. And you got to begin to groom them now, so that they know that they had a conscious mother. And mothers, you are the ones, because he's out working all the time. But you got to join forces with us, because we can't do this all over again. How come your son can be born and have no knowledge of the history of our struggle? Ask him 10 years from now, who was Malcolm X or Martin Luther King? Or that's the name of the street down there. But do you know anything about his life? What he stood for, what he fought for, what he struggled for? They'll have a street named after Minister Farrakhan. They'll have an avenue or books or schools. But do you know about the person? And if they don't know about it and they're not learning that in school, then that's a responsibility that we have. Let me try to go through this. So your roots are necessary. In that picture, when they sold Kedzie off, and when you saw her screaming and hollering, not only being taken away from her mother, but she was the property of another one of them wicked white men, known to the Nation of Islam as devils, who was going to take her as their property, and you watched in the movie him repeatedly raping her. Then she gets pregnant for him and has a son. And then the tragedy of the rape and the scenes in the picture that he showed, I was surprised. Because anybody who sits there and watches that, you have to be filled of total dislike and hatred of what we went through in slavery and what our women suffered. And they belonged to him like a piece of property. And every night he got sick of his white wife in that house, he would come out to the slave quarters and rape our women. Not, they try to soften it up, having sex with it. It was outright rape of the black man. And then you got a man like Thomas Jefferson. And you have to teach your children with Sally Hemings, how he took her to Europe with and had all of these babies by her. And he was the one who was authoring the Constitution of America and the Declaration of Independence, I should say. And there you go, sister. And raping black women. And the Hemings family and the Jeffersons now, they work together and so forth. But this is what we suffered. Your children have to know that, and don't let nobody tell you. You ever heard of a Jew telling their children, we're not going to talk about the Germans and what they did to us, because that's teaching hate. That's right. And those brothers who are in the hip-hop community, and you should send Snoop Dogg an email or text him and say, Snoop, I never heard a Jew say, I'm sick of looking at pictures on the Holocaust. How could Snoop say, I'm sick of looking at these pictures on slavery?
He said
that? Yeah, he said it. Yeah, he said it. But he don't hear from you, he'll continue to say it. You can tell him, brother Snoop, I'm your fan, I love you, love your music, I love you as an individual, but that statement was misplaced. The Jews don't say that. I mean, what's the guy that made Indiana Jones? Spielberg makes pictures over and over about the suffering of the Jews. You ever heard a Jew say, Spielberg, I'm sick of you making pictures about Jews in the Holocaust, in the ovens of Germany. So you gotta be on that. But if you don't have a voice, because these are the voices for the future, and you gotta tell your children, they may have a fascination with Snoop Dogg. I always thought, I said, how's a man going to call himself Snoop Dogg? And when he got to Jamaica, probably smoking some weed with them Jamaican brothers, they say, Snoop Dogg, you a lion, brother. If you want to be anything, be Snoop Lion. See? And when somebody said something that brought consciousness to him, he immediately changed. So this is our work. So let me move to the next part, the revolution. Bernie Sanders, who was running. And if I had to wish for anybody to become president, not just because he's a socialist, because he understands certain dynamics of America, and he understands how America, the strongest and most powerful country in the world, has lived on the lives of the poor and the disenfranchised and crushed us. That's how they live. That's how they make their money. And that's what they do. And so therefore, if there was anyone, but he said that we're going to have a political revolution. See, that word scares white folks.
Yes, sir.
This country was bathed in blood. It was built on killing and slaughter and slavery. That's how it was built. And now you got a wild card called Trump.
Come on, man.
He's a wild card now.
He's a wild
Himself
card.
an outsider. But you know what he said to us? This is how white America is thinking. That's what he said. Look at the people. Trump said, I can go on Fifth Avenue, shoot someone, and I wouldn't lose no vote. Could you imagine that? Because he tapped into the American people, and the Democrats are running around saying, the Americans are smarter than that. And I'll use Barack's word, really? No way. So let me just finish. The revolution. The revolution, as Minister Farrakhan used to so beautifully say in New York, is the changing of your mind. That's the revolution. Making you what you were not yesterday. And changing your mind. And there has to be a revolution in our life. Let me tell you about our revolution. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pulled us out of the grave, and what is so beautiful, when his teacher, Farrakhan Muhammad, came, he went around and talked to the people. That's all he did. That's where he started at. First there was the Word, and then the Word was made flesh. He talked to them, and he talked about their condition that they couldn't see. They didn't understand about eating hog. They didn't understand how they looked up to a white Jesus that the white man gave us. And we thinking that Jesus was God, and that we closer to white folks than we were, and we wanted to be close to him so we could be close to white folks. And so he worked on us and pulled us. The revolution was that he was able to get us away from hog eating and alcohol and this terrible life, dysfunctional families. All of us have family challenges and problems, but it don't mean that you throw the family away. And one thing that you have to do, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, accentuate the positive, cast off the negative. You got to be more positive about what you have. You can't be negative all the time, looking at the downside, looking for doom, the gossipers and the warmongers who always want a fight to be going on. But you got to be positive. You got to look at life as it is. This is where I'm at in life. And listen, and I believe in God. And I know that if I keep going, that God will, by his grace, bless me to do better. But if you get up every day and you're in pain, you pop a few pills so you can get through the day, and somebody speaks to you in the morning, good morning. And you say, oh, I don't speak that. See, you're negative. Everything is negative. When you look at something, instead of looking at it at the positive side, because life is so short. And you got to get the joy out of life while you're alive. You got to do good things for people while you're alive. Brothers, you got to treat your wife right while you're alive. You know, don't say, woe is me, when the future go, I could have done better by her, or you could have done better by him. Do it now that you're alive. Take the time to show some love and compassion. And love don't happen overnight. It's not just a sexual attraction or a beautiful woman or a handsome man, but love is something that goes over the years. Love represents having someone by your side that you know will watch your back, somebody who is with you through thick and thin. That's what love is made out of. You know, you get mad at each other. I'm going to divorce you. I'm sick of this. I mean, it's so easy to say that. Then you go and think the grass is greener over there, get over there and find out it's just as brown as the grass you got back there.
Say that.
So the revolution is to change you. That's what it is. And as that revolution changes you, you know that you are a finite being. You know that you're here for a period of time. And it's what you do. And I watch these years roll by. And when you get older, it looks like they move faster. You know? Before you know it, it'll be August the 1st. And when you think of August the 1st, you think of rent time. Okay, mortgage time. But it comes so quick. And this is the way life moves. So you have to take advantage of the time that God gives you on this earth. So how do you do it? Number one, you say, I have to leave a legacy. You know, my father did not raise me, my biological father. He joined the military in 1944. He was in World War II, and he stayed in the military until 1970. I saw him in between now and then, but I asked him one day, because I got bit by a dog in New York, a dog. They told me not to run, and I ran. The dog jumped on me and bit me in my behind. And they had to take me to the hospital. So that stuck in my mind. And I asked my father the few times, I said, if a dog attacks you, Dad, what should you do? He said, if you can find a stick or something long, go for his mouth. Go and try to stick it right in his mouth, and you'll find out he'll turn away and run away. Now, he didn't teach me nothing else in life, I have to say that. I love it. But that stuck with me all my life because it came from my father. And I'm saying this to you, brothers. You have some children out there. Some of them, you call them, they may and put their mother on the phone, and she says she ain't got no money, cuss you out and so forth.
Yes, sir.
But you got to keep that door open.
That's right.
And even if you have to do it, you got cell phones, you can text them. If you can't talk to them, but you got to keep that door open.
Right.
And the thing, teach them one thing. Teach them about consciousness. And don't be afraid to talk about the white man, because you're so afraid I want to teach my son hate. He's in a world full of hate.
Come on, man.
You tell the truth. When you tell the truth on the white man, you're not teaching hate. I'm a truth teller. That's what you got to tell. And the truth is that this white man has abused us and misused us. That's what you got to do. Because they represent the voices of the future. Now, we've been working all of these years, 56 years of my life. And it's almost like we're repeating the steps. When the mosque right here, you should have it packed all the time, especially right now. So, you know, I mean, you got to use things. Don't be afraid to say, brother, what we going to do in the future? Come to Muhammad's mosque. And the minister, you hold the map. I'm trying to get to these maps. Maybe the maps are calling me, say, Akbar, get to the map. You got, this is the time, this is your hour. The reason the mosque was packed in the early 60s, Malcolm had from 500 to 900 people at the mosque on Sunday.
Oh, come on.
Why was that? There was a combination of two things.
Come on.
That the joy we got in going out in the street and getting a dead black man who was strung out on heroin. Heroin was king in New York at that time, and the civil rights struggle. People were looking at all of this movement in the country, college campuses, the sitting at the lunch counters, the demonstrations, the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. They were looking at all of this. And in the midst of that, 17 nations in Africa in 1960 became independent. So all of these Africans were coming to America. They were talking about uhuru, freedom, freedom. So in the midst of that, people were coming to the mosque because they were searching. And they had a spokesman at the mosque who was brilliant in his delivery. He was balanced in it. He talked a little politics and contemporary things that were happening in the world. And people, men decided to join. Women decided to join. And most of the sisters followed their husband into the nation. Some of you came in first, I know. But once the sister followed him and she saw a marked difference, and the man yesterday was drunk every weekend, going out and partying and spending most of the money, not taking care of business, all of a sudden, a revolution came and the man was changed. He was bringing his money home. He was going out with his children on the weekend. He was talking to his son. It was a change. When I first heard and I accepted, and then that June of 1960, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to New York. And Minister Farrakhan that day took up the collection. But when I was leaving the 369th Armory, I saw young brothers, looked like they were 20, 21, and they had helping their wife with the babies. And I really looked at it and I said, this is what I want to do. See, because I knew it represented a change in my life.
Yes,
my family was opposed to it at first. My mother, they didn't understand it. They were trying to, but they were not with me. But 20 years later, my mother was the biggest champion of the Nation of Islam. She remained a Christian. she said, if Elijah Muhammad can do this with my son, he must have something.
Go ahead.
And she respected it and she loved it until the day she died.
Praise
So we got work to do.
Yes,
And the work to do is we got to go after our people in an hour. Don't sit around like you don't know what to do. All of that wisdom you got, go and start teaching them.
right.
You know, the minister called for 10,000 strong, and you can ease it on them. Brother, yeah, we're going to have an army. They don't know what you're going to do. We don't carry weapons. You notice the white man don't write in the paper that this so-called terrorists, they call them, who kill these people, belong to the Nation of Islam. There's an article written out of Houston. I don't know if you saw it.
Yes, sir.
They said that he belonged to the Nation of Islam, and they should say right after that, but the Nation of Islam don't carry guns.
Right.
And all of their members, and especially their men, are encouraged not to carry
Right.
guns. And that's it. Now I know this is Texas, so all of y'all got a little gun at home or something. This only, Akbar is only my hunting rights. You understand? Ask you in a dark corner, you want to go and hunt some white folk. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we shouldn't carry weapons. But the point is that they don't say that.
They don't say it.
So these white Americans, and you know how slow they are, they just assume that we are armed and that we are a threat.
Right.
So the bottom line is that you got to get ready for tomorrow, and we got to create these voices for the future. Now I want to segue into something. First, I bought a table for the items to sell, and it allows me to move around. Right now, I'm on a mission to raise money for my son, his second year in school, and the brother said the other night that Akbar shouldn't have to do that. I do have to do it, unless you got some money for me. You got about 30 grand that you're gonna give me in a minute. So I mean, I ain't got so much pride. I got children going to college. I got a girl starting next year, Rakaya. Those who know it, she's be a senior this year, and she's blossomed as a beautiful, smart, intelligent young lady. So I thank God that all of my children by my first wife, 7 daughters, all of them went to college. 5 of them graduated from college, and the 2 that didn't because they chose not to. Not that their father didn't support them, didn't give them money. They just chose not to do it. One went to Grambling, the other one went to, all of them went to black colleges. I can't even think where Niger went. Oh, she went to Bethune-Cookman. And because I felt that they needed to go to a black undergrad, and then when they do their graduate work, they can go to another one. And it's important because when you go to a black undergrad school, you meet friends for life. You go to one of those white ones and see how many of those friends you remember. And they don't contact you, and you don't contact them. Okay? You were just a black child in one of the lab classes. Okay? So, so on the road, I've been on the road. I'm going to South Carolina this weekend, and then work my way up the East Coast until I get to my home, New York. And I'm cleaning out my total library, Brother John. And you know, I started in St. Louis. But St. Louis is not a reading city. Now, that is the truth. I have 4 tables with books, $1, $2. I mean, classic. They come out the mosque and say, "Salaam alaikum, Brother Akbar," and don't even look at the table. I know you all love your hometown, but I just got to be real.
Ouch.
But some cities, one of the cities that really impressed me was San Francisco. I went out there, I took those books, I lectured, and I told them the books are in the back. If you buy a book, you get a free picture, historical picture. They wiped out every book on that table. I mean, I had to scratch my head because it's a reading audience. People read. And in today's world, everybody has stopped reading.
Right.
They stopped reading.
Stop reading.
And anything they want to know, Google it. And we don't even have, you know, whether it's Wikipedia or Google, but we got to compare stuff.
Right.
We got to see what this person said and how this person described it.
That's right.
That's very important.
That's right.
So the thing that I want to talk about briefly, and then I'm going to close out and I'll open the floor for some questions. Where is Brother Lee from Fort Worth? Is he here? Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, my brother. Thank you. I want to thank Brother Captain John, because I called you based on the conversation I had with him. And but let me just say this. I want to talk briefly about what's happening in the world. And one thing that I remember in my early life as a Muslim, I was downtown New York selling papers. I was the top paper seller in number 7 for quite a while. That's how I got on the roster.
Praise be to
And
Allah.
I opened a ministry class.
Praise
And
be.
one day I was down, and it was my secret weapon, because people were trying, how did he knock off his 300 papers that quick? You wrestling with 25 papers. Imagine, we had 300. We had a captain that when we came in, and we didn't sell 300, and we had an excuse. I mean, I never forget some of the things he used to say. He used to say, what excuse? Got a headache? Take a pill. You know? But, and he said, poor excuses are a sign of weakness.
That's right.
So we were selling 300 papers, but the brothers were also stacking, because brothers made money, and they could afford to buy them, and they would buy them and just hold them. But we sold papers. But one day I was downtown near 42nd Street selling papers, and 2 men from Britain were there, and they stopped and they were pointing to the brother who was with me selling papers. He said, now these are the intellects of the black struggle. This was during the 60s. These are black Muslims, and they know about the world. They know everything. They just thought we were smart. After they heard Malcolm, they just thought all of us were smart and very well read.
Right, right.
The knowledge of what's happening in the world is important.
Very important.
And I was blessed to go to school at a time in New York. I'm a victim of the New York public school system. But one thing that they taught was geography.
Yes, yes.
Do they teach geography in school? They have a geography class in school today? Most schools don't. They don't. They have a class called civilization. They hit at a few things. But we literally had geography class where the teacher had a map. I want a couple of brothers to, can you bring the world maps? The world map? And I have African maps. We ran out of them, the world maps. But if you want some, my wife is at the table in the back, and she'll take your name and email address, and we'll see how we can get them to you. And even if you go on Amazon and order the maps, they're not this size. They charge the same amount, but they're big. Is this the world map? I need 2 brothers. I need 2 tall brothers. That's the world map? Well, y'all, listen. I mean, Dallas, y'all got all these St. Louis brothers here. I mean, y'all got a movement on Dallas. Somebody's easing into St. Louis. Now, don't forget, now, I'm not unmindful that there's some people in here listening where you should listen for good. You're listening for the white man. And even if the white man that you're listening to got in between you and him, a black man that you report to, because Dallas is on edge right now.
That's right.
So when the word went around that Akbar was coming, they want to know what I'm coming for. Am I coming to see how your weapons look and see what kind you got? You know, am I coming to foment some trouble? And so they want to send you. So when you go back and report to him, you tell him it was a good lecture on world history.
Go ahead.
That's what you say.
Go ahead.
And then you tell him that I learned some things that I never even thought about.
Right.
Bring it over here a little closer. In the 60s, brothers were going to Vietnam. And Vietnam is located right over here. Most brothers didn't know what it was, where it was, or what was it.
Right.
They didn't know. That's your fathers. But the white man was drafting them and sending them over there to fight and die in a foreign land. And then you have right here Algeria. You see right here? Yes, sir. Let's see if I got it. And I got one, I think, right here. Right here, you have a big country in Africa. I think now between this and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, as far as land area, they're the largest. But there was a war there between the Algerian people who were dominated by the French. And the French had set it up, introducing French culture. You were not educated unless you spoke French, not your mother tongue of Arabic, taking you away from the principles of your religion so that you could be more European. And then a man named Ahmed bin Bella, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, had a beautiful thing on the front of the paper. And you can go now on probably YouTube and get the Battle of Algiers. How many saw the Battle of Algiers? Okay, so the people rebelled against an enemy, but how did they rebel? What happened is when the French, here's France right here. When they were fighting in Indochina, because the French ruled Vietnam,
Oh, really?
they took these soldiers there. And it's an unbelievable history. The Battle of Dien Phu and General Gap, who beat the hell out of the French army, drove them out. The French left Vietnam and warned America about going in, but America said, we America. We the baddest on the planet. And they went in there and got their behind kicked. They took over the Ho Chi Minh's army, took over the country. The Viet Cong ran them out, and then took the city of Saigon to really spit in America's face and named it Ho Chi Minh City. That's what happened. But here's the point I'm making, that these Algerian Muslim brothers were taken over the world to fight the battles of France, and they came back home and looked at the miserable condition of their own people, and they began to rebel against France. But they had Uncle Toms.
Right.
Those who loved France more than they loved Algeria.
Right.
Those who loved the French way more than they loved the land of their own people, and so forth. So they fought with the French against their own people. You're going to have Negroes in this struggle who do the same thing.
Right.
I mean, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad painted out clearly
Right.
on Muhammad's speech where the boat was leaving, and there were Negroes who wanted to stay with the white man. You're going to have to make that decision
Right.
one day.
That's right.
And there's a book, and John and them know I mentioned it quite a bit in St. Louis. It's called Negotiation, written in 1983. I can't remember the whole book. I read it so long ago. 1983, by a black man in Chicago. I get his name mixed up. Something Gilbert White. Did I have it right? Master, my assistant back there.
Bernard Gilbert.
Huh?
Bernard Gilbert.
Bernard Gilbert. He wrote the book called Negotiation, and I was fascinated by it because America had reached a point where they had to call a referendum that black people had to vote whether they want to stay with America or whether they want to leave. Your arms all right, brother?
Yes, sir.
You all right?
Yes,
Okay. Whether they wanted to leave. And so the referendum came out. It's just like the BRICS, the vote that Britain just went through, that everybody thought that Britain was going to vote to stay in the EU. Okay, this is a major event in the world. It may not have been anything to you because maybe you didn't understand the politics of it. But the vote shocked them. Even the Prime Minister of Britain resigned because he couldn't manage over a Britain or the UK that had separated from the 28 countries in the EU.
Yes, sir.
So this referendum came up, and the black people voted to separate, and it blew everybody's mind. Then in the book, this is the part I can remember clearly. Now the book is a novel, so it has some pretty raunchy sex scenes in it, okay, because it is a novel, and some people feel if you write a novel, you got to have some kind of sex in it in order for it to sell. But the book, the main part, is that they had to select someone who could negotiate with the government of the United States for our separation. That means we had to negotiate. Lincoln wanted to send us to Central America, right here. Now, I'm showing you this map because instead of you got a picture of Britney Spears and Kanye and the Armenian girl, what's her name? Kardashian, the Armenian, okay, on your wall, and your children will put a map up there. And when your son get up in the morning and say, show me Algeria.
Go ahead.
Show me Mali. Show me Ghana. And you'll find out. Show me the United States. Where's Canada? Where's South America? What is the Caribbean? Where's Cuba at in the Caribbean? So that one day, when you ever seen the thing when Jay Leno he would question people in the street, and he asked someone, what was the capital of Russia, and the man said Cuba. I mean, this is how dumb the American people are.
Right.
And so, but that knowledge is not going to come unless you take time to do it. So anyway, let me go back to the point. So they had to search for someone who would negotiate. Now, Lincoln, when he met with the Negro leaders, President Lincoln, because a group of them came and Lincoln wanted to separate them and send them back to Africa or a place of a climate that was like the climate they came from. So Lincoln suggested Central America because America had a lot of control there. It's warm. That's Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, you know, right there, Mexico, and so forth. I just met the first time in my life, I've never seen a a black Mexican, but I met one in Houston yesterday. Y'all know any black Mexicans here? I mean, African Mexicans. You do? Okay. I just have never met one. I was fascinated and meet my brother. So, but all, because Mexico heavily involved in the slave trade, and one thing I want to throw as a caveat is that when 1492, now you know I'm a historian, I'm trying to get through this. In 1492, when Isabel and Ferdinand, two things happened in 1492.
Come on.
Can anybody tell me? No, one at a time, one at a time. Brother Captain. Okay, why did they call them Moors? Why did they just call them Muslims? Why did they say the Muslims? But you notice they never say Muslims. They say the Saracens, the Moors. Okay, they don't, that's right. They don't want to identify that Islam ruled Spain for 800 years. So, the point I was making, I'm trying to get the point now, but so you have to know that in this book, Lincoln met with the Negroes, and Lincoln said to him, and I may not quote it perfectly, but you can order the book, and Brother Earl, who really helps me, and I thank Allah for him. Brother Earl, you have to see if Lincoln and the Negro is still available. And in it, Lincoln said that as long as we stay together, there will be a superior and an inferior.
Right.
And I, as any other white man, ascribe the superior position for me and my people. So he was encouraging them, let us, this was a great mistake that we made. This is a burden on America because in the face of God, it was a hideous crime. And the crime was to drag you out of Africa, bring you into the Caribbean and America, and make you slaves and cut off all of the light from your mind and make you as dumb like an animal. That was a crime. And they were trying to get away from the punishment that they knew. And Thomas Jefferson said, I fear for my nation to think that God is just. It means that what we suffered, that God is going to punish them. And they know it, so now they're trying to deal with it. So Lincoln said that, but in the book, they had to find someone to negotiate. And so they got a Japanese computer firm, and they came up with the name. And it was a man from the south side of Chicago. And when you read the book, it kind of describes Jesse. But he had to meet with the people. By that time, they had built an airport in Lake Michigan. And he had to go to Washington to negotiate with the government for our separation. Now, the whole premise of him writing the book came from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the one who talked about separation, but they call it separatist group, like it's something evil and so forth. They separated from England. England ruled them. And England ruled these 13 colonies, and they fought a battle called the Revolutionary War and separated from England and formed their own country. But most black people don't have the vision to say that, well, one negotiation is to get those 5 states that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. And there's a white group in America, I think it's in the Turner Diaries, that showed how America would be broken up. It said, give these black folks those states so we have our own land. And then there was a black man that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad worked with named John Cashin. He died, he has since died, he was a politician, but he purchased our land in Alabama and Georgia. He was the one responsible from Huntsville, Alabama. And he had a theory of how, if the brothers, if y'all get tired, y'all can get 10. You all right? You've been going to the gym, so you all right. But he had a way that we could take states. And he had it systematically broke down how we could take a state. It started with local elections, and then state government, that's the Senate. And then after you get your people in place, and all of those in New York and California and Texas that left the South, go back and get a piece of land. Buy an old raggedy house so you can have an address there and you can vote there. And then when it comes voting time, you vote, you seize a state. And the power that a state has, he was explaining to me, he says most people don't understand it. A governor, that's why the governors of Illinois always got in trouble going overseas and making deals that were not straight up. More governors went to jail in Illinois than any other state probably. But governors had the power to do foreign trade. Governors are over the National Guard, which is an army in that state. And he was saying how you could seize it. So the negotiation for the separation. And my point here is that you have to talk to your children and answer questions for them about this, because it's going to be an uphill struggle. But Allah will give us the victory if you hold fast. Don't get weary. Okay, you right at the door. The minister said justice or else. The else is what's happening in the streets of America right now. And he was saying that you got to give justice to our people. And they didn't give justice to our people with all of these murders. Going on and on and on and on. No justice. So now you see the cities are rocking across this country. And what they have to do now is spread out enough money to try to cool. This is what they did in St. Louis and Ferguson. They barely had a march when those last two brothers were killed. Brother John, did you know that? Barely could get 100 people in the street.
Yes, sir.
And you started the whole thing. So why is that? Because they spread enough money. And most of us are hungry for money, and for money we begin to lose our principles. So I want to do one more thing, and then I'm going to close it out. How's the time? What time is it right now?
Good. 8:30.
8:30, okay. I want to have you out here quick. Okay, so this is a map of the world. I'm sorry, this is the last one I have, but if you get it, and you can frame it nicely, plaque it and frame it, then it got all of the flags and so forth. And I brought them back from Africa because I felt that I go around the country and talk to believers. And the thing that you can see is an enlightened believer. I've been to, in the world, there's 194 countries registered at the UN. Then you have other countries that are small countries, but I've been to 154 of them. Okay, and so my travels with Minister Farrakhan and witnessing how people receive him and so forth. And so my travel around the world makes me want the Muslims to understand what is happening to the Islamic world. Right now in Saudi Arabia, there's a problem. Here's next to Saudi Arabia is the country of Iran, where I just came back from with the minister. And Iran has 80 to 90 million people. 90% of them Muslim.
Wow.
And Iran is at odds with Saudi Arabia and even have banned the Iranians from coming to Hajj, which is going to light up the Muslim world. Then the Muslims, they're having a march in Washington this weekend, and they're so weak. They sent a letter to the minister, but they didn't want the minister really to speak. They just invited him. And then the minister said, Akbar, go back and get the details. What do they want me to do? They want me to come and sit there so that they can recognize. We have Minister Louis Farrakhan here. And while they talk, and so the march is problematic. And they never answered in the affirmative, we want the minister to speak. How can you have a march with Muslims talking about their pain, but they want to talk about their love of America? And if I could dig deep in it, I guarantee you the Democratic Party got some money in this game. They got a dog in this march. And, so that they can talk about Trump banning Muslims from the country, and we welcome all, and you need to vote for the Democratic Party. So when they said people who put up the money, they said, if you invite Farrakhan, we got to pull the money off the table. That's why we got to be independent. That's why we got to set up business and have our own money and not depend on them funding everything that we do. So I just wanted to say this about it. One last thing. I mentioned, could you step over a little closer? I know these brothers. I need two more brothers on the African side. I mentioned earlier, and this is important for you to do when you get to your children, you talk to, you can start at Senegal. And Senegal is well known for Gorée Island and so forth. And you can, well, actually Mauritania too, but Senegal, because Mauritania has blacks, but mainly Arabs. So from here all the way down, you can go down as far as Gabon. Right here, they brought slaves from this whole coast. And there were great civilizations there. Songhai, Mali, Ghana. These civilizations were dominated. Ghana was the only one that the Ghana civilization, not just the country of Ghana, because when Ghana became independent, a man named Dankwa suggested to Kwame Nkrumah to name the country, not the Gold Coast, that white folks named it, but call it after the great civilization of Ghana. The Ghana civilization was dominated by non-Muslims but ruled by Muslims. And this whole area here, that's how you get the Gambia, Kenta Kunte and so forth. This whole area going down in Nigeria. Nigeria is 72 to 75% Muslims, okay? This whole area is Muslim. So in the book called The Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade, it took 12 years to make the book. It was printed by Yale University. They printed limited edition. It was a $50 book. But in the book, what fascinated me, it showed where the slaves were, and the ones that were desired. The slaves from what is today Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and all of this area, they wanted them because they knew how to grow rice, cultivate rice, and the white man did not know how. Anybody here from the coast of South Carolina? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Where you call geechees or rice eaters and so forth. In New York, we loaded with South Carolina. Okay. But they showed the number of slaves that were brought from this area. They actually have numbers. They kept records. See, you think it was some random thing, some old white boy came out of Europe, put some chains on a boat, sailed from Liverpool, came down here, put some heathens in a boat and brought them to America and made them slaves. This was a scientific operation. They built in Newport, Rhode Island, they built slave ships, laid them out. How many slaves could fit in? What is the attrition rate? How many will you lose going across the ocean and so forth? How much air would they need? So this was a science of evil. So I'm saying that many million, and I want to just try to close this if I can. They say, Brother Akbar, land that plane. I'm trying. Okay. Right here, what you have on this coast is a lot of Muslims that came. So it was growing by leaps and bounds all over the country. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's name was echoing. People feared him. They printed a magazine called the Horizon Magazine, a hardback magazine. I think it was a quarterly magazine. They did an article called Black Muslims. And when you open it up, there's a beautiful picture of a Nigerian Muslim, black, like the Southern Sudanese. You know, brother, if you don't mind, brother, stand up right behind there. You, the brother that's beautiful, yes. They were black like him, or a little black. But look how beautiful. So in this magazine, I got the magazine. You know, I had a bookstore, so everything came by me at least. But I read this article with fascination, and what really got to me is there was the Methodist Monthly magazine printed for slave owners in the South had an article in there how to deal with your Muslim slaves and what they're good for. I mean, it really, now this is back in the 60s. It really blew my mind, but it was like a confirmation that many of us came. And then today, Sylvia Duke's book, In the Name of Allah, and she goes into it in details, even the churches and the things that you did in the church. Everything we could do in as Muslims, those that held on to the practice. There's a book by Ahmed Akbar, a former ambassador from Turkey in the UK, who left and began to write. They hired him in America because they were trying to understand this phenomenal growth of Islam in America. So he wrote two books, Journey into America and Journey into Islam. And in his second book, he goes to the islands off the coast of South Carolina and digs up the slave roots there that were Muslims. And these societies, Bilal and all of them, showing that we came from a Muslim background. The last point I want to mention on this, I'm going to try to make this the last one before I go to the other maps. Okay? The last point I want to mention on this is that Malcolm kept telling Alex Haley this. Alex Haley didn't believe him. And Alex Haley rejected it. But yet and still, it was true that thousands and thousands of Muslims came here as slaves. So when you heard Islam, it was already in your DNA somewhere. Yeah. It was lying dormant. That's why those who become involved in Islam in their life, you don't say, I joined the club, I used to belong to that club, but it's in you. Very few, unless you lose your mind, messing with that crack and a little cocaine, go back to sucking on a pork chop. I mean, you just can't do it. There's something about you. Even if you're not practicing, somebody says, what's your religion? I'm a Muslim. Because there's something in your DNA. And the other thing is when you heard it, it resonated with you. There was something about it. You understand, with all of the problems that we have, all of the captains and the ministers that get on your last nerve, there's something about it that resonates with you. You try to hold on to it because you feel that this is it. This is what God has blessed me with, you know, and it waters my soul. So I just wanted to finish that part up. Now let's move to the last part of this. Thank you very much. Okay, brothers. Can I get two more brothers, okay? Now the world map I recommend to you. You can talk like when something happens in the world, such as what happened in Turkey recently. Can you hold that 1 second? Because I don't think Turkey's a good shot on the other one. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, here's Turkey right here. A country of about 85 million. I would say 85% Muslims. There's the Armenians. That's the Kardashians. They're the Armenians. And in 1915, they said Sultan Hamid drove the Armenians out, and it was genocide. They're the ones that wrote the book, We Charge Genocide, because of that. But Turkey is an important country because it's a country that sits on Europe and Asia, and it's through the Bosporus that's mentioned in your message to the black man. But now there's a problem in Turkey, and the root of the problem could be a man, they say, who is in America here, Fethullah Gulen, in the Poconos. Usually, when there's an opposition leader to a government, and he's in your government, like in America, America is usually supporting him. And so America is having difficulty with Erdogan, the prime minister, now president of Turkey, and they may be behind the military coup that failed. And you know why it failed? It failed because the people did not want a military government to lord over them, and they took to the streets, and it was a failure. And now they're criticizing the president of Turkey for arresting so many people. What do you want to do? It's like when the Palestinians, women are raped by the Israelis to make them talk. Do you expect that the Palestinian will go say his prayer and have an atonement day and ask God to forgive them? No, you radicalize him. And that's why they're willing to give up their life, because of what you have done and your hideous behavior towards the people. So Turkey now is at the center of the world. Whether it will survive this or not will remain to be seen. Okay, thank you, brothers. Now my last point that I'm going to try to make, I'm going to have them to bring up these other maps, a map of Africa. I'm sorry that I don't have that many books, but the brothers who are into hip-hop, you know, Vibe folded in 2014, and the Vibe magazines are collector's items. So if you got some at home, dig them out, and then go online and see what they're selling for. Each one of them that I got a price on in the back, you can stand there with your computer, go on Amazon, or what's the other one that you go on, Amazon or what? eBay, and see what they're selling for. Now, I sold a brother one I didn't know it was worth $169, and I was in outside of Atlanta at a Ramadan retreat. And the brother put the bag on me, because he wanted that magazine. And I sold it to him for $10. And I haven't heard the end of it from my wife and my son. But we got some collector items, and they're dear to me because I didn't know my daughter, who passed away from cancer, Medina, I didn't know she was a collector. And I was going through her stuff. All of the old newspapers that I sent her when Barack took office and Kennedy's death, she actually saved them. And it takes a certain kind of mindset. Now, some people, that stuff don't mean nothing to them. But they're historians. These things are treasures. Okay, and I happen to be one. And then the other day, I took all of my final calls, because final calls are like sacred, and so they're early 1979 and 1980, and I put them in a box. I brought them out to one of my speaking engagements, so I said, just make them $2. And a sister came, I thought she bought 50 for them, she bought 24 of them. and I had my son to go get her address and phone number and her email address, because I told her I may have to call on her and purchase them back from her, because I didn't know what was in there. I just put them on the table. So those of you who are new to the nation, and there's one paper back there that the price of it is $7, but exactly what's happening today, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article about it, about police brutality, and showing a cartoon that was drawn by one of the great cartoonists for the Final Call, showed the Klan beating a man down, and then showing it transitioning to an officer in a blue uniform. Okay, that's what it shows. Okay, this is Africa, and I just want to do this quickly. There's 54 countries in Africa. Recently in the news, you heard about the Sudan. The Sudan at one time was the largest land base of one country in all of Africa. The largest population in all of Africa is Nigeria, with about 170 million people.
Wow.
And then you have Egypt right here, that the Europeans always try to make it's in the Middle East. Right. What is the Middle East? If I got any sense, and you know when they tell you that Egypt is in the Middle East, you should say, I was born at night, but not last night. Egypt is in Africa. Okay? So, and then Libya, there's complete chaos. They overthrew Gaddafi, killed him, and they're using this against Hillary Clinton because she was running the foreign department, state, Secretary of State. Overseas, it's the foreign minister. America's the only one that called it the Secretary of State, but she was running that, telling Barack what he should do, telling Barack that he should back the European powers and bomb Libya and get a no-fly zone, and then eventually kill Gaddafi. And since he was killed, this country has been in chaos. And I know that the Libyan people, when they say their prayers at night, they ask Allah to forgive them for what they did against Gaddafi and allowing him. They could walk at night. When I was in Libya, 11 o'clock at night, I could walk the streets, go anywhere I wanted to. I mean, and it was just a society, a beautiful society, but now it's in complete chaos. So they just freed Gaddafi's son, Saif. And the reason they didn't kill him like they killed the other son is they felt that Saif knew where the money was. And they knew that Gaddafi was sitting on billions of dollars in gold, foreign currency, and so forth. And if anybody knew Saif, and they knew if they killed Saif, they would lose it. And if he tells them, Saif was smart enough to know, if I tell them where the money is at, they're going to kill me right after that. So he said, I'll just sit in jail and suffer. So finally, the country's in so much chaos, they freed him. And we will see how things unfold. Okay, so now the Sudan, and I'm just trying to bring you up to the news that you hear on the radio or see on TV. Now, you may not have no interest in this at all. It's just not your cup of tea. It's fine. But there is someone, it is their cup of tea. They want to know. So be patient with me, okay? This is the Sudan. I lived in Ghana for 12 years, but if I had a choice of living in any other country in Africa, it would have been the Sudan. They say, why? It's dry, you know, and so forth, and because they're black and they're beautiful Muslims. They got the soul and the heart of a Muslim. So when they became independent, January 1st, 1956, Ghana was 57, right? Yes. They became, and they say Ghana was the first independent country in black Africa. This is a black country, but they didn't want to see it that way. So when the British ruled here, the British made the South a closed zone. This is the South. This is where the black people live, real black, I mean tall. Manute Bol, you remember him? Yes. Okay. You see how tall he was? The Nuer and the Dinkas are the two dominant tribes, and then the next one is the Shulus. But all of them have tremendous height, and they're very black and beautiful people. So what happened is in the South, being when the North became independent, and they set up schools and everything in the South, that the white man wanted to keep closed because he knew it was oil, gold, and other items there. I was just reading on a report that we were doing, the riches of South Sudan. They kept it closed because they wanted it. So when they finally, America accused Sudan of slavery, and all of that was a lie that they created in order to divide the country, because Sudan was friends of the Palestinian people. They have many camps there and so forth, and the Israelis are the ones who encouraged this. So July 11th, July 9th or the 11th, 2011, they voted and they became independent. And since that day, they've been fighting and killing one another.
Right, right.
And it's really a tragedy right now in the southern Sudan. The oil came from this area, and the oil used to go up and go out of Port Sudan right here in northern Sudan. But what they wanted to do was to build a pipeline all the way through here. No, they wanted to go this way, excuse me. They wanted to go through Kenya to Lamu, that's on the coast. They never could get the pipeline built. And this is a major issue because America is the one that supported it financially and backed this separation. So therefore, the death and the destructions of hundreds of thousands of people, as I stand here right now, is at the hands of the United States of America. Their errant foreign policy. Now, the richest piece of real estate in the entire world is right here. You know it as Zaire, and you only do it because Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Okay? And the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There's enough wealth here to rebuild Europe and America all over again.
Go ahead.
The wealthiest piece of real estate in the world. And then, you know, South Africa, I'm not going to go into details. Botswana was blessed because they found their gold and diamonds after the white man left. And so, therefore, they are very rich now, very rich. And the reason I'm showing you this, countries like Namibia, just over 1 million people, maybe 1.7. So when we begin to negotiate for a land in Africa, there's countries that have tremendous land. And in many of these countries, Minister Farrakhan is loved and well respected.
Yes,
so
sir.
we got to develop our foreign ministry team.
Right,
You know, I got to pass this baton of traveling to some young brothers and sisters who want to see the world and engage in the world for the good of the nation of Islam.
Yes, sir.
So I want to thank you very much. The last map, could you get the last map for me? The last map, now this is maybe a little too advanced for your children, but excellent for you. And the reason that I like this political map, and you know, when you look at something to put on one of your walls, this is a political map. And the beauty of this map, it goes to all of the African countries. Even they had to add this one, and this is Salva Kiir, the president of Southern Sudan. So that country is the last independent country of Africa. But it goes through, starts with Algeria, Angola, Benin, and it says the presidents. It gives you first their population. It tells you who was the colonial master, and so forth. Then it goes to the list of presidents of those countries. And then when you see one that you recognize his name or you want to study, just like in this country here, Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara, who was a young brother and a musician, an artist that Minister Farrakhan met with when we were in Burkina Faso. He loved the minister. Then he was overthrown by, some people say Compaoré was his cousin. And he was overthrown, and now Compaoré is overthrown, and the country is having a tremendous problem. But you can go through all of them. You can go through the different countries. Here in Cote d'Ivoire, where they're showing Ouattara, that's the current president who is a Muslim. If you look at that, turn it a little. He looks like the Muslim, the minister there. Yeah. You see this man right here? Right. You can see the map. But you know, the Buji is a small country, Eritrea, that got its independence in 1993. I had the honor to fly with the president to his first OAU conference with President Rawlings. Rawlings and I developed a good relation. Here's the Gambia, Yahya Jammeh. Many of you may have heard of him. He's doing a conference now in the next month on Africans in the diaspora. And here's Ghana and its long history and the presidents of Ghana. And here's Libya. This is the man that took over after Gaddafi died. He only lasted about a year and he was out of there because he just couldn't handle it. But this is, and it goes on, you go to South Africa and stuff. So you could talk to your children, and when they look at it, they say, well, Burundi was ruled by the French, and even the Belgians had a little to do with Congo, Brazzaville, and Congo, Kinshasa, the two places. Here's Ethiopia, well-known Egypt, all of the presidents of Egypt, Gamal Nasser included, who loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And you go right through it, and then it gives them the kind of interest in Africa because they know something about the leaders. You ask the average black person in the street to name you 5 African presidents, and they'll get lost. And they'll probably call off Nelson Mandela, and he's been out of office for a long time. So I want to thank you very much. Thank you for bearing with me. What I'm going to do, I'm only going to take 3 questions tonight. I'm going to take 3 questions, and then we will call Minister Tyrone back up to close the meeting.
Could you give a brief experience you had with Idi Amin?
I can't, that's not a brief conversation. But I'm just going to say it like this. Idi Amin, and I'm going to say this quickly, Idi Amin, he took power in 1971. Idi Amin was trained by the Israelis. Idi Amin fought with the British against the Mau Mau in their struggle. And he was taught to fly in Israel. So he was a general and a strong one. And so when Milton Obote, brother, could you bring the map back? 1 minute. I'm going to make this brief, Carl, because it takes time to do it. But I just want to show you this part, the African map. Netanyahu, a week ago, went to Uganda. And because Netanyahu, the current prime minister of Israel, his brother was killed in the raid on Entebbe. Okay? And so Idi Amin invited the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to attend a conference in 1972, I think I got that right, in Morocco. And it was the Organization of Islamic Conferences. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad turned it down and didn't go. But Idi Amin didn't stop. And then the next time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did go. So Idi Amin's ambassador in New York asked if Minister Farrakhan could be sent, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time did not want him to go. But Idi Amin, here's his country of Uganda here. And most people don't know that practically half of the people of Uganda are Muslims, not converts. They were born Muslims. And if you want to read about how Islam got into this area, get a good book that's on akbarsbook.com. It's called The Preaching of Islam by Honor. Okay? My brother's making a copy of this. And it shows you how Islam spread in this area. Then Idi Amin becomes the chair of the OAU. At that time, the African Union was the OAU, 1975. So he sent, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had left us, he sent for Minister Farrakhan to come to Uganda and attended, and Minister Farrakhan went. And that started our relationship. Then when the film, when James Baldwin wrote the script, Suddenly One Day I Was Lonely, which is the script on the life of Malcolm X to do as a movie, he fell out with Columbia because James Baldwin is real feisty, you know, and anybody know anything about him, I don't have to go no further. But he fell out, so Alex Haley approached us at Jimmy Carter's inauguration. All of this is in my book that I'm working on now. And Alex Haley said that, can you raise the money so we can produce the film? And Minister Farrakhan could only think of one person in Africa that may be able to give him the money, and it was Idi Amin. So in '77, after something I'll tell you about how we got there, we went to Cairo first. Then the plane went and picked up Idi Amin, brought it back to Cairo for the first African-Arab Summit Conference of how these Arabs with all this money could spend that money and develop in Africa. That's what the conference was about. After that, we went to Uganda. We stayed there 22 days. It was one of the greatest trips of my life. I played Milt Jackson's Sunflower every morning and looked out of my room at the hotel at those beautiful mountains. Uganda is a beautiful country, especially at that time. Then before we left, we went to Entebbe, where the airport is at, and we had a meeting with Idi Amin. Brother Carl, you started this, so the minister told him about the project of the film on Malcolm. And the minister had agreed to play Malcolm as long as they kept the Honorable Elijah Muhammad intact. And so, but we needed money, so we could do it independent of Hollywood. And Idi Amin said, I don't have that kind of money, but I got a friend that let me call him. Right there, sitting in the room, he picked up the phone, and he called up to Tripoli, right here, to Muammar Gaddafi. And he told Gaddafi, I have a brother here from America that has a very good project that will be good for Islam. And could you see him? And Gaddafi said, send him. So we got on a plane, we left here, and we stopped in Khartoum, my first trip to the Sudan, and from here, we flew to Tripoli. And the rest is history, because we were supposed to meet Gaddafi, the brother who was supposed to pick us up from Ghana, was late. We missed the plane, and Gaddafi was taking us to Brook. The Brook is on this side of Libya. They were celebrating the kicking out of the British, and we were supposed to meet with Gaddafi. It didn't happen, and we were supposed to get back to him. Then we went on to Mecca, made Umrah, and the minister came back and rebuilt the Nation of Islam. So that's how it went, okay? Okay, okay, go ahead, Brother John.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
I just, first of all, want to thank you. You know, it's good to see you. And, I mean, when I was processing, I was helping you with your books back in the day in St. Louis, and just so good to see you. And you know, for everybody, Brother Akbar and I, we've been through it, right? We've had some good times and we've had some bad times, but we've always loved each other, and I appreciate you. And my question is, one of the ways I think we can help you, like I know I got books, and I got duplicates of books, right, that I have. How do we get these books to you so that you can sort of replenish what you're doing on the road? And I just think that would be good, maybe even add to your website. But, you know, how can we get books to you?
Thanks. Okay, what I will do is I will give you the address in St. Louis, because I keep that address, and they hold things while I'm circulating. So I'm going to give that to you. And if anybody else wants to do that, if you got books at home, like Before the Mayflower is a classic. I sold all the ones that I have. And the reason is because how Lerone Bennett starts the book in Africa. I mean, the details that he goes in, and you get another kind of sense of what we were doing before we were born.
Go ahead.
He does an excellent job. And to me, it's an important part. You may have a couple of copies or a copy. And if you're not going to do nothing with the books and your children are out of the home, I could certainly welcome them. When I first moved to Ghana, that's how I got all of the books for our shop in Ghana. The believers sent me books, and they sent me a ton of books. And so, Brother John, I'm going to give you that address. Anybody else would like that address can stop in the back at the table, and we will share that with you. Okay, thank you, brother. Okay, this will be the last. I got to get a sister. One sister, and then we'll come back. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I enjoy everything. We've been in Texas ever since the emancipation of the slaves, and one of the largest landowners, you know, they sold this land 50 cents an acre way back by the creek, nobody wanted. But it just so happened that the females and most of the males, they lived to be 95, 97, so they spoke a lot to us. And Liberia, did they buy the United States buy Liberia for us?
Good question. Well, they didn't buy it, they just took it. Okay, that's a good question. Here's Liberia right here. There was a group called the Recolonization Group. They were a group of Christians who were anti-slavery and felt that the slaves needed to leave or go back to Africa. And they started this. So they sent a group of slaves to this country right here, Sierra Leone, and they sent a group to Liberia right here. The ones that went to Sierra Leone, most of them got malaria and died, but the ones that they sent to Liberia survived. And some of the slave masters who had children by black women put their children in that group. That's why the airport is named Roberts Field. It's named Roberts Field after one of the presidents of the United States had a child by the slave master. Most people don't know this. And the interesting part is that when they set the Constitution, and Charles Taylor, Minister Farrakhan, we were sitting in the office together, and Charles Taylor said, you know, in our Constitution, we have a statute that says that any Negro that comes to Liberia is awarded 1 acre of land free. And he said, you know, Minister Farrakhan, that's still there. So any of your people will come here, we can give them an acre of land. But Liberia went through a tremendous history, and there's a man named Blyden. What is Blyden's full name? Come on. Edward Wilmot Blyden. North Carolina. He was in the Caribbean. He was educated. He was a Christian missionary. He was sent to Liberia because in Liberia you have the Americo-Liberians who are the descendants of the slave, and you have the indigenous people. And he went there, and he looked at the society, and he found out that the Muslims dominated Liberia. Most people don't know. I didn't know that until I first went there. And they took me, Charles Taylor's wife took me to the camps where the Muslims who had lost their parents, they were like and they called it internal displaced people. Different from a refugee that's outside of his own country. And so this country became really the property of America. I just found, going through my collection, I was showing it to my wife, I said, look at this book I found. It's called Bells of Shangri-La. And it's about the American government at the beginning of World War II. They told the Liberian leadership that the Germans were going to take over Liberia and seize all of the rubber plants. Firestone brought 1 million acres at 3 cents an acre. And they used it, it was like their plantation. And, but the war, they needed rubber for the tires and so forth. And they floated that rumor, and they stationed American soldiers in Liberia to protect them. And in exchange, Liberia would become the registry for ships. That's why you see ships registered in Liberia, because America gave that to the Liberian in exchange for those soldiers. This book was about how they set up brothels for these soldiers, mainly white soldiers, and some black soldiers went. Ozzie Davis was one of them. It's a fascinating history about Liberia. She now has a woman, Mrs. Sirleaf, who is the president. She's going out, and there's a few people that are going to run for president. But and Bob Johnson built a beautiful hotel that everybody stays at now. He suffered a little in Liberia, but the country is rich with gold, diamond, bauxite, iron ore, and tremendous timber. So how many are interested in doing business in Africa? Okay. Well, what we could do is we could have a seminar, and this is not just for Muslims, but guests who want to do business in Africa, and we will tell you some of the keys, you know, some of the opportunities. And you can't have scared money. You know, in order to make money, you got to be willing to invest, and pray to Allah that your investment comes through. Otherwise, you'll always be from paycheck to paycheck, but you got a cause. See, and your cause is bigger than putting 5 cars in your garage and 3 Honda bikes. You understand? It's bigger than that. Or you'll follow, what's the basketball player who's got all of a total game room with 100 games in. Can anybody name him? I can't call it. Shaquille O'Neal. You know, and then put a big picture of all of this madness in Jet magazine. And the white folks sit there and laugh at him and say, see how I got this Negro spending this money? Got 20 cars. He got a game room with 100 games. Each game costs about 95 grand. I mean, come on. And he could take that same money and invest it in doing business in Africa, where he will be helping people and also making money for worthy projects. So if you're interested in doing that, we will, Brother Earl, who has a mining concession in Tanzania, because Earl, if you don't mind, let me tell a little bit of your business, okay? And I mean your personal business. He wanted to buy, he was interested in gold, always been interested in gold. He's from Las Vegas. So he thought he'd go to Africa and buy gold cheap. And that's the worst thing you can do. Because gold, people don't look for sales of gold, it sells itself. It is always a scam. So he decided, well, maybe I'm going after this wrong, and found that he could get a concession for gold in Tanzania, and they had just begun to find gold in Tanzania in large quantities, and so he went there and opened a business. So he can, and he has a company, Green Africa, and he can come and give you the ins and outs of how to invest in Africa, how to pool your money. You know, he was explaining to me today crowdfunding. I mean, I knew nothing about it, but he gave me the concept, showed me what it was. And you can pool your resources, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man, and do something constructive with yourself instead of trying to just live from hand to mouth and then wasting money on the trinkets that white folks dingle in front of you. Okay? So, I don't know how did I get there? Thank you for the question on Liberia. Okay, so this is the last question. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Are there
Yes, okay, Brother Earl, could you pull up Samima's number? My daughter has taken the tour, so if you have a pen or your cell phone, put this number in. She's doing one this December. She can package, like say everybody in here in this group wants to go to Africa. She'll package a trip for Dallas. I see my sister who went to Africa with us, and where's my other sister who, she went to Africa? Yes, and how many went to Africa with Akbar Muhammad? Okay, see, so we got one. This is your daughter here, right? Yes, sir. Okay, look just like Mama. And, but that trip to Africa is an investment in memories. My sister told me today she was just thinking about the trip. It never leaves you because there's almost a natural desire in you to put your feet on African soil. Never leave you. You know, and that's why I always tried to make sure people had good trips. That they wouldn't come back and badmouth Africa and so forth. But it never leaves you. You don't shake it. It lives with you till the day you go to your grave. When you go to those villages and travel up country and see Africa. But most of the people that went with me at that time, we went through Egypt. Egypt is in trouble right now. And it's difficult to go through Egypt and have the kind of quality time that we had years ago. But you can certainly go to Africa. Most people want to see South Africa. But it's like a part of Europe until you go into the outbush and other places. But there's plenty of countries, Tanzania and Kenya, beautiful countries, you know, I mean, really, really beautiful countries. But there's many places in Africa that you can travel to. So what is that number?
678.
678.
549.
549.
4775.
4775. Okay? So Samima, S-A-M-I-M-A-H. S-A-M-I-M-A-H, Samima Aziz, my oldest daughter. Okay? She does trips, package trips, and so forth. And I go along as the consultant. I'll be there with you as long as she hires me as a consultant. Okay? Okay, I want to thank you very much. I'm going to bring the minister back. I'll be in the back if you have any further questions. I'm sorry, the books are limited, but they are back there. And we are raising money for Jihad. He has a letter. Where's Jihad at now? Is he back on that cell phone? So I'll be in the back. We're going to close the meeting now. I want to thank the believers from Fort Worth. It's about an hour's drive from here. Okay. After the prayer, I'll be at the table in the back. Okay? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine, brother, that's fine. One more time for International Representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Minister Akbar Muhammad. Wasn't that wonderful? Knowledge is power, right? And he's walking with